This is page 24 of Coding for Beginners using Scratch. We're talking about repeating patterns on this page. This is where we can start making some really interesting looking things. And if you look at the code at the top of page 24, it is what we had when we did page 23, when we finished page 23. But here is the code that right now it's drawing a six-sided figure or a hexagon. I'm going to change it to what's in the book, which is a 4, and four-sided figure. 4 goes into 360 90 times, so let's change that to 90, and we'll leave it on 50. But this loop here does a square, okay? And what if I want to draw a bunch of squares? Okay, then I can put this in a loop. So let's go to our control commands over here, and let's do a repeat, and we're going to grab this stuff right there. Okay, and now I'm going to hook it back up again. So now I'm going to draw 10 squares. Now if I just do this, it's going to draw square 1 and square 2, and you can see the colors changing as it's redrawing the lines. I don't want to wait for it to do 10 of them, but they're all drawn all 10 right on top of one another, and that's really not as interesting as drawing a bunch of different squares at different angles. So what we need to do is we need to decide how many we want. Let's say I do want 10 of them, but I want to turn a little bit every time. And I want to keep turning until I've made a full circle. Well, we know that if you want to do 10 of something, a full circle is 360. So 10 goes into 360 36 times. So what I have to do is I have to do a turn command down here that says turn. And I want this to be after I do this repeat loop. So the inner repeat loop ends here, and so I want to stick it between that and the outer repeat loop. So do 10 times every time I want to turn 36 degrees. Okay, and now let's another thing they did in the book is they set the pen size to 3. I don't know why they put that in the loop, because it doesn't need to be done every time. You set it once and it's good. So we're going to set our pen size to 3. We're going to do it before we get in the loop, and the outcome will still be the same. Okay, so let's give it a shot and see what happens here. So we're going to get we got to get rid of this delay though. It's going to take forever if we do the delay, so I'm just going to pull that out. So now let's go ahead and run it. We should get 10 squares. We'll turn a tenth of a circle every time, and then we'll draw another one. So let's go ahead and there we have 10 of them. Now that almost looks like the one on the top of page 24 at the right, but if you look at it carefully, it's not quite the same. I'm doing 10 squares. They were doing 12 squares. Okay, so let's change this to 12. And then if we do, 12 goes into 360 30 times. And so let's run it again. Okay. And your colors may not be exactly in the same positions, but you are going to get basically the same colors. And so there should be like kind of a one that's mostly bright blue here, and yeah, they're changing the color every time they go through and draw a new side. I'm going to change something here. I'm going to pull this out, and we're only going to change the color after we draw the square. Okay, so instead of each side of the square being a different color, each square is going to be a different color. Now some of them are going to write on top of one another. You see these lines in the middle here. Each line is part of 2 different squares. So the second square's color is the one that we'll get here. So let's go ahead and let's try to run this, and let's see what we get. Okay, so it looks like we start off with a green square, because that's where we picked up from before, and then we did a different kind of green, and then a light blue, and then a dark blue, and then a pink, and then a red, and then a yellow, and then we're back to green and blue again, and then purple. They're slightly different shades though. So that is similar. The outline is exactly the same as the one on the top of page 24. What's different is that the colors are a little bit different. Okay. So now let's go down and try some other combinations here. So number 1 at the bottom of the page says for our outer loop do 10 and 36, which is what I had up here a minute ago. So that will give us 10 of whatever we choose to draw. And so the number here needs to be what you get when you divide 360 by 10, and it's 36. And then it says for the inner loop we want to repeat 3. So that means we're going to do a triangle, because this inner loop right here, let me pull this out. The inner loop right here is what draws the figure, and the outer loop tells you how many to draw. So I'm going to put this stuff back up there again, and we're going to do 3, and each time we're going to turn 120 degrees. So we should get 10 triangles now, and each one will be a different color. Let's go ahead and run that. And I'm going to do what they do in the book here. And I'm going to just get rid of this color change. So let me pull both of them out, get rid of that. Whoops, didn't pull them far enough away. And let's put this back in. And I'm also going to make it 100 steps instead of 50, so you get a little bit bigger figure here. So let's go ahead and run it. And that was the last color that we were stuck on, so that's what we're going to get. Now let's say that I want, instead of doing 10 of those, I want to do 20. Now it's kind of hard to see here, but these are equilateral triangles. If you follow this line here and then go here and then go here, that's one of our triangles. Okay. So let's try doing 20, and 20 goes into 360 18 times. So we'll still get a complete circle here, so it'll be a nice symmetric figure, but we're going to have twice as many triangles. I don't know what this is going to look like for sure, but there it is. Looks a little bit like a Ferris wheel to me. Let's look at number 2. Number 2 says for the outer loop do 45. Okay, so let's put a 45 in here, and we're going to do triangles again, but 45 goes into 360 8 times. So we're going to get 45 triangles drawn here. So that's quite a bit. Let's go ahead and run it. And that should look a lot like the picture at the bottom left part of page 24. And it's fun here. You can try different size figures and different numbers of times to repeat, but just remember, this times this is always 360, and this times this is always 360. Let's try number 3 at the bottom of the page. And what we want is the outer loop 12 times. So I'm going to change this to 12, and 12 goes into 360 30 times. This needs to be 30. And we're going to do a 10-sided figure. So the inner loop is 10, and 10 goes into 360 36 times. So let's go ahead and run that now, and let's see what we get. Okay, and when you start doing something that big, you're going to end up, did I do something wrong? A 10-sided figure is 36 degrees, and we do it 12 times, and so this didn't cut, these lines didn't come out quite right at the end. Let's change this to a 50 and see what we get. Should fit on the screen this time. There we go. And that should look exactly like the one at the bottom of page 3, except that I think our pen is a little fatter and the color is a little bit different, but that's okay. So play around with this, try different numbers here, and this number here is always going to determine the number down here, and this number here is always going to determine the number down there. So you can make a lot of really interesting shapes if you play around with those numbers a little bit. So that's the end of page 24, and we'll continue on page 25 in the next video.